So, if I was an Academy member, what films and performances would be on my Oscar ballot? Hi, it's Brian. Welcome to the Awards Contender. We are just days away from the 97th Academy Award nominations. I thought it would be fun before we get to who's actually in, what movies are nominated, if I had a ballot, if I was an Academy member, what films would make it in. I'm going to give you my nominations for all 8 of the top categories. These are who and what I would vote for. Let's start with Best Adapted Screenplay. I would go with A Complete Unknown. I thought that was a very good adaptation, very compelling film about Bob Dylan. Great performances, great direction, a really excellent screenplay, I would say. Same thing with Dune Part 2. I'm really hopeful that Dune Part 2 is going to get an Oscar nomination for Adapted Screenplay. I know the first movie did. I think it's deserving. All of the characters that film balances and everything Dune Part 2 holds together as a screenplay is pretty remarkable, so that would also be on my list. I'm Still Here, I think, is one of the great films of 2024. It didn't quite make my top 10 list, but it's definitely in my second 10. And that's a great screenplay too. I'm hopeful that could maybe get into adapted screenplay at the Oscars. I feel like it has a chance. Sing Sing, that's also in my second 10 of the year. I think the screenplay for Sing Sing is fantastic. And, right now, we're not quite sure how well Sing Sing is going to do. Could it only get into Best Actor for Coleman Domingo and show up nowhere else? I'm a little nervous, guys. Sing Sing deserves to get into, at minimum, Picture, Actor, Supporting Actor for Clarence Macklin, and Adapted Screenplay. It would make my list here. And The Wild Robots. The Wild Robots, I think, would be an inspired Oscar nomination for Best Adapted Screenplay. It's probably not going to happen. Animated feature films only occasionally get recognized in screenplay by the Academy, but I would absolutely have it on my ballot. So my personal 5 nominees for Best Adapted Screenplay would be A Complete Unknown, Dune Part 2, I'm Still Here, Sing Sing, and The Wild Robots. Alright, Best Original Screenplay, all 5 of these titles are in my top 10 best films of the year list, so if you've watched that video, you kind of know it's coming. In alphabetical order, like with Adapted Screenplay, let's start with Anora, my favorite film of the year. I'm very, very hopeful Sean Baker is going to win the Oscar for Best Original Screenplay. I think that's going to happen. I feel pretty good about that. He would absolutely make my list in original screenplay. Baby Girl by Helena Rain, I think deserves to be here. I think that's one of the most original screenplays of the year. It's one that could have gone wrong in so many ways, in so many places. And I was so taken aback and pleased at how Helena Rain took an idea that by another director, another screenwriter, could have been obvious, could have been familiar, and she made it really fresh. I thought that was a great script of 2024, Baby Girl. Challengers would be on my list. Challengers, has a very outside shot of getting nominated for Best Picture, in that 10th place slot. Maybe it could happen. I don't think too many people are predicting it. But with Sing Sing kind of falling out of favor, I'm not so sure at this point that Sing Sing is going to get into Best Picture. There is room, maybe, for challengers to surprise. But in original screenplay, I do not see that happening. If it did, I will sit up and cheer. I will be so excited because I think the screenplay to challengers is one of the best of 2024 and deserves to be here. It would be in my list for original screenplay. Same thing with Saturday Night, which is another fantastic script of the year. And in September, October, I was feeling pretty good that the Saturday Night screenplay would be Oscar nominated in original. But that movie has really died out. Outside of that Golden Globe nom for Gabriel LaBelle, it's basically not shown up anywhere this season. But I love that movie. I think it's one of the best of the year. And if I had an Oscar ballot for original screenplay, I would put Saturday Night on there for sure. And of course, The Substance by Coralie Farja. The Substance would absolutely make my list for original screenplay. I'm feeling pretty good right now that Coralie Farja, even if she misses in director, I think she can get into original screenplay. And, you know, it's not 100% yet, but like, if Demi Moore is the frontrunner to win Best Actress for that movie, it would surprise me given that at the Academy Awards, they have 2 separate categories for screenplay. I feel like The Substance gets into original there. So I think it's going to be nominated. I really hope it is, and it would make my ballot for sure. So in original screenplay, my 5 choices would be Anora, Baby Girl, Challengers, Saturday Night, and The Substance. All right, Best Supporting Actor. Are you ready for me to mix things up? Like, most of these nominations I'm going to talk about in the acting categories are not necessarily like going to be nominated at the Oscars, like at the actual show. Again, these are who I would put on my Academy ballots. Like, if I was voting, like, these are the performances that really stood out for me in 2024. So starting in Best Supporting Actor in alphabetical order by last name, Mark Eidelstein for Anora. I have been, honestly, kind of surprised that Yura Borisov has gotten in everywhere for that movie. And Mark Eidelstein, who has the flashier performance in that film, has not shown up at any of the big televised ceremonies. That has been very shocking to me. Like, I mean, I understand because Eidelstein does disappear for a big chunk of the movie in the middle. And at the very end, you're really left with Mikey Madison and Yura Borisov. Like, in those last few scenes, the most emotional beats of that story. So I get it. It makes sense to me why Borisov is being recognized and not Eidelstein. But boy, I loved his performance in Anora. Eidelstein is such a breath of fresh air. He is so funny, so gifted, so frickin' memorable in Anora. He would make my ballot. Josh O'Connor, Challengers. Josh O'Connor in that film. I also very much adored Mike Feist in that movie. But if I had to pick one, like the performance in that movie that really blew me away, that I really loved with my full heart, it is Josh O'Connor in Challengers. What a presence he has. He's so good at both comedy and drama. There's this like dangerous aspect to him that I was really taken with. His chemistry with both Zendaya and Mike Feist is great. And there's a couple moments in that movie. Like, if I had to pick like my favorite acting moments in Challengers, they do come down to Josh O'Connor, so I would have him on my ballots. Guy Pearce, the Brutalist. That's the only name in this list of 5 I have for Best Supporting Actor who's probably getting the Oscar nomination. He's the only one. But like, I mean, I have to have Guy Pearce here. He is so freaking great in that film. I've been a huge fan of his for decades, and he's never gotten his flowers. Like, come awards time, this is the moment for him. He's so chilling in that movie, especially in the second half. There's something about him in that film that I can't erase from my mind. What a villainous character. This was the right role for Guy Pearce at the right time, and I think he is dazzling in that film. Jesse Plemons, Civil War. If Isabella Rossellini can get an Oscar nomination for her very few minutes of screen time in Conclave, I think Plemons deserves an Oscar nomination for Civil War. For that one scene, he is so bonkers great in those few minutes of screen time in Civil War. That movie came out way back in April. I think of all the performances that had an impact on me throughout 2024, Jesse Plemons is one of them. Like, of course, he got the Golden Globe nomination for Kinds of Kindness, and he's very good in that movie too. But it was his tiny part, a cameo, really, in Civil War, that blew me away. And like, if we're going to put someone into supporting actor who only has a few minutes of screen time, who's not in 45 minutes, an hour, whatever of their movie, I think Plemons would be a great choice this year. How frickin' terrifying is he in that movie? And Bill Skarsgård, Nosferatu. Talk about a transformative performance. Like, this guy is amazing. Like, what he is able to do, first with his performances in the It films as Pennywise. Like, I thought his work in those two movies was pretty spectacular. And then I had heard he was playing, like, the vampire in Nosferatu. He was playing the title role. And I was like, what's he gonna do with this? And watching that film, I could not see Bill Skarsgård at all. Like, I mean, you can kind of tell it's him in some aspects of the It films, but Nosferatu, that is a remarkable performance by any actor. And I mean, because you can't see him at all, and it's a vampire movie and all of that, I mean, it makes sense why he hasn't really been part of the awards conversation, but I think he deserves to be. Because, I mean, you do not see him in that film, and all of the choices he makes from scene to scene, he's so creepy and believable and icky and memorable and, you know, kind of sad at the end. It's a really great performance by Bill Skarsgård. I would put it on my ballots. So my 5 picks for Best Supporting Actor on my ballot would be Mark Eidelstein, Anora, Josh O'Connor, Challengers, Guy Pearce, The Brutalist, Jesse Plemons, Civil War, and Bill Skarsgård, Nosferatu. Okay, next up is Best Supporting Actress, and this one I do have a few names that might get in at the Oscars. There's no like huge shocker here. I would start with Monica Barbaro, A Complete Unknown. I think if we had to nominate one person from that movie, for me, it would be her. I think she has so much presence in that film, playing Joan Baez. Anytime she was on screen, I was transfixed. I don't even know if I've seen her in other projects, like maybe a couple other things, but she is fantastic. I can't wait to see where her career goes next. And I'm really hoping she gets the Oscar nomination. She got in at SAG. And so, like, I mean, I'm hopeful. I think she can do it because supporting actress is so chaotic this season. I would have her on my list. Next up is Carrie Coon, His Three Daughters. I really took to this film. It's kind of like a chamber piece, mostly set in an apartment with 3 great actresses. You have Carrie Coon and Natasha Lyonne and Elizabeth Olsen. And pretty much all the coverage for this movie in terms of award season has been focused on Natasha Lyonne. She's very good in it too. I really liked her performance, but I actually preferred Carrie Coon. I think she is a powerhouse in that movie. And I mean, I have loved her as an actress since The Leftovers. I thought she was deserving of like a last-ditch effort, like potential nomination for Gone Girl a decade ago. She's great in that movie by David Fincher. And she always brings her A game, and I thought she gave one of the best performances of 2024. Ariana Grande, Wicked, would make my list. I think she is frickin' phenomenal in that movie. All year long, I was kind of like, okay, Ariana Grande is, you know, playing a big role in Wicked, and this could be fun. I was not prepared for how good she was going to be. She is a comic force in that film from scene to scene, and she blew me away. She would make my ballot for sure. Felicity Jones, The Brutalist. I very much hope Jones makes it in at the Oscars. I think she's going to. Even though she's missed a couple places, I'm getting the sense that the Oscars will do the right thing by her. Like, come on. As long as they go all in on The Brutalist in a variety of categories, I think Felicity Jones is going to make it. And she is just so memorable in the second half of that movie. It's the best work I've ever seen her do. So she's here for sure. And then Margaret Qualley, The Substance. I have to have her here. She is, you know, she's kind of like half of that movie. It's tricky because, like, you have Demi Moore in lead actress and you have Margaret Qualley in supporting. I mean, you could flip that if you wanted. You could have both be in lead. You know, like there's different ways to go here. As you'll find out in my best actor category, I have 2 people there who are getting nominated in supporting, but I would have in lead. Margaret Qualley, that one's a pretty big performance, I would say, for supporting, but I mean, that really is Demi Moore's film. Like, if you really look at it like on a, on an entire narrative level, it's kind of her story from the beginning. So I would still have Qualley be in supporting actress, and she deserves to be there. I hope she does get the Oscar nomination because she is absolutely at Demi Moore's level. She's just as good. She is doing spectacular work in that movie. If either one of those performances hadn't worked, hadn't been delivered by two actors at their A game, I do think that movie crumbles. So Qualley is just as important. Like, her performance in that movie had to be as good as Moore's, and it is. So the 5 performances in Best Supporting Actress on my ballot would be Monica Barbaro, A Complete Unknown, Carrie Coon, His Three Daughters, Ariana Grande, Wicked, Felicity Jones, The Brutalist, and Margaret Qualley, The Substance. Okay, Best Actor, of course we have Adrien Brody for The Brutalist. He is the frontrunner to win the Academy Award for Best Actor. I think he's probably going to win. Outside of Chalamet taking SAG and potentially posing a threat come Oscar night, I think Brody is going to win his second Oscar 22 years after he won for The Pianist. And I just think, I would say on the male side, that's the best performance in the movies in 2024. I was really taken with Adrien Brody in that film. And I think to not have him on your ballot in the 5 best performances in lead actor would be surprising to me. Anyone not having him here, even if he's not your number one, I just think that is a remarkable performance. He deserves to be there. Kieran Culkin, a real pain. I would nominate him for best lead actor. He is in that entire movie. We open with him, we end with him. Maybe there's a scene here and there that he's not a part of, but it's mostly his story as much as it is Jesse Eisenberg's. So, it's going to be weird to see Kieran Culkin sweep in supporting actor when he's in almost that entire film. That is category fraud, to be sure. I would nominate him in lead actor. He is worthy of being somewhere on my ballots, because that was one of the most impressive performances of the year. He is absolutely a force of nature in that film and deserves to be nominated. I just think it should be in lead actor, not supporting. I also have Harris Dickinson, Baby Girl, in my lead actor lineup. That one, you could make the argument, is supporting actor. It's really Nicole Kidman's movie. It's her story. You could make the argument Harris Dickinson is supporting in that, along with Antonio Banderas, who's also very good. But I don't know, he's in a lot of that film. And because Best Actor has been kind of weak this year, there's not 10, 15 amazing performances to put in there. I thought about Timothée Chalamet, I thought about Ralph Fiennes or something. But I'm what's a performance I really took to in 2024? And I mean, Baby Girl is right up there with my favorite films of the year. You're probably going to see Nicole Kidman in a minute here, of course. I would also put Harris Dickinson in Best Lead Actor. I think he holds his own up against Kidman. It's really a great character he comes up with. And the complexity of that guy throughout the narrative, you're trying to guess, what are his motivations? What is his angle here? I think the way Dickinson plays that character is fascinating. And so he does make my list. Coleman Domingo, Sing Sing. I have to have Sing Sing in here somewhere because that is one of the most important films of the year. He's so monumental in that film. Coleman Domingo, boy, he is having a moment with Rustin, and he was good in The Color Purple, and now in Sing Sing, and I think he's in an upcoming Michael Jackson biopic. I think Coleman Domingo's Oscar win is coming. We just have to be patient, because he is making very smart choices. He's showing up in one good film after another, delivering brilliant performances. It looks very well likely he's getting his second Best Actor Oscar nomination in 2 years. Like, that doesn't happen very often for actors, like male or female. And he absolutely deserves it for Sing Sing. I loved him in that. He would make my list. And finally, I gotta throw a horror performance in there because I do have at least one horror performance in each of my acting categories for my ballots. Hugh Grant's Heretic. He is phenomenal in that movie. I could not believe how effective he was, like as a chilling villain all throughout that film. He's so sweet at first, but you know what kind of movie you're watching, and after a while, you're like, you don't know what to expect from this guy and like what he's capable of. He has lots of long monologues. He's funny. He's scary. He does a lot in that movie. And Hugh Grant has still never received an Oscar nomination. I don't know if he ever will. I don't see that happening. Like Heretic actually getting into the Oscars in Best Actor for Hugh Grant, that would be shocking, I would say. But he would make my list. I think he's deserving. So in Best Actor on my ballots, I have Adrian Brody, The Brutalist, Kieran Culkin, A Real Pain, Harris Dickinson, Baby Girl, Coleman Domingo, Sing Sing, and Hugh Grant's Heretic. All right, Best Actress. Who would I nominate? If I could only write down 5 names on my ballot for all the movies I saw in 2024, who would be my 5 in Best Actress? Nicole Kidman, Baby Girl. As I've been talking about for months on this channel, I think that's her best work on film in more than a decade. She really blew me away in that movie. She's such a workaholic. She shows up in so many different things. Some of them are good, some of them aren't so good. Like, she was in at least 2 things, I would say, in 2024 that I watched I didn't much care for. But then we get to Baby Girl, and like Helena Rain, the writer-director of that movie, used Nicole Kidman in a way we don't often get to see her. She has such complexity in Baby Girl. Like, she gets to play all kinds of notes, vulnerability, strength. She's very sexual, but also very scared. And like all of the different beats of her character throughout that running time, it wasn't easy. That is not an easy character to play, to pull off. Like in terms of like likability, in terms of like what you were expecting her to do and say at any given time. It's a very unpredictable screenplay, unpredictable character, and Nicole Kidman I found to be just fascinating to watch in that movie. It's not looking like she's getting the Oscar nomination, which is a huge bummer because I think she deserves it and she would make my ballot. Mikey Madison, of course, for Anora, my pick for the performance of the year. I mean, I walked out of that movie at the Toronto Film Festival feeling almost like I was levitating. I was so happy. I was so inspired by how good a movie can still be, like from the screenplay to the performances to the unpredictability of the narrative to cinematography and score and all of that. And that central performance by Mikey Madison, I mean, it's just one of the great performances of the last few years. A perfect match of actor to character with the right director, the right storyteller. She would absolutely make my list, to be sure. Demi Moore, The Substance, of course, I would have her here. That's one of my 5 favorite performances of the year. I grew up with Demi Moore in the 90s. I've always loved her. I always felt like she had a great performance in her. I mean, she's good in a lot of things, like in Ghost and G.I. Jane, and there's been certain films she's been in where she's good, but like she's never had the opportunity to really show her stuff, I would say, until The Substance. Like, she gets to play all kinds of beats in that movie. I mean, that scene of her getting ready to go on the date, it's one of the best scenes of any movie of 2024. I was stunned, like watching the whole film, of course, but that scene especially, like what she's able to do, just looking at herself. No other actors in the scene. It's just her playing off her own image. Demi Moore just goes for it in this movie. And I mean, in the second half, like all of the makeup effects that are done with her face and everything, it's pretty frickin' remarkable, I would say. And if she wins the Oscar for Best Actress, that is going to be one of the all-timer victories. As I talk about on this channel over and over, like horror films, like performances in genre movies, you know, with makeup effects and certain things, like those performances rarely get recognized. And so for Demi Moore just to get the Oscar nomination for Best Actress is a huge win, is fantastic, and that she might actually take home the gold trophy in March is quite something. It's a great performance. I'm so happy it's being heralded and being recognized all over the place. It would, of course, make my ballots Saoirse Ronan, The Outrun. She would be on my list. I have loved that performance since I saw it way back at the Sundance Film Festival a year ago. I think it's one of her best 2 or 3 performances ever in film, and that she has 4 Oscar nominations, and this is not going to be one of them, is kind of devastating to me. Like, for a few months there, I was like, she is definitely getting nominated for that. Like, she's getting it. Especially with her also having Blitz. Like, I thought Blitz was also going to be a bigger deal. I think a lot of us thought she might be double nominated, and like the 2 movies could actually help her get in to both lead actress and supporting actress. What a womp this season has been for Saoirse Ronan. I mean, Blitz makes sense. I didn't really care for that movie. You know, she was fine in that, but you know, nothing really special. She does give a special performance in The Outrun. And like when she missed at the Globes in drama, I was like, really? What happened with that film? I think it's a very good movie too. It's not like, you know, just a so-so like terrible film, but she's very good in it. I thought it was excellent. It would be in my second 10 favorite films of the year. So that one has been kind of a head scratcher for me. I think Saoirse Ronan gives one of her best performances in her still pretty young career. In The Outrun. I think she deserves to be in that Oscar lineup, and she would be on mine for sure. And Naomi Scott's Smile 2. I was so blown away by Naomi Scott in that horror sequel. Boy, like this movie rocked. It was so scary. Nightmare fuel for like almost 2 hours. It was quite something. Like the storytelling, the cinematography, very well done in Smile 2. And that lead performance by Naomi Scott, do not knock it until you see it. You might be like, Smile 2? Best Actress? Brian, are you okay? I'm telling you, like this is one of the great performances of the year because it's like a more commercial horror film. It's a sequel. Like, that was never going to be a thing. I think she got one kind of big nomination somewhere. I remember seeing her name on one list at one time, and I was like, great. I mean, I get it. This was never going to be a realistic awards play for Naomi Scott. But I do think that is a pretty remarkable performance. That is not a performance any actress could have done. Like, the emotions she has to play throughout that running time, from scene to scene, it's almost exhausting, like what she is put through in that movie. Naomi Scott in Smile 2, just frickin' spectacular. So my final list on my ballot for Best Actress would be Nicole Kidman, Baby Girl, Mikey Madison, Anora, Demi Moore, The Substance, Saoirse Ronan, The Outrun, and Naomi Scott, Smile 2. Best Director, all of these folks come from films in my top 10 list of the year. Of course, you have Sean Baker, Anora. He has to be there. It's not just a great screenwriting feat, it's also a tremendous directing feat from him. I think he is one of the great directors working right now. He's so exciting. His ideas are always interesting and filled with comedy and drama and empathy and heart, and like just what he brings to each project feels so authentic and lived in. He casts his films really well. He doesn't go for the big star. He goes for the person who's right for the role. So yeah, Sean Baker absolutely deserves to be here. He would be on my ballots, along with Brady Corbet for The Brutalist. I do think he's winning the Oscar for Best Director. At this point, anyone else taking that would surprise me. I don't even know, really, who's in second place. Like maybe Baker, I don't know. I do think the directorial achievement of The Brutalist is one of the most remarkable of the year, even though I wouldn't necessarily nominate the screenplay. Like, I didn't even have it in my screenplay lineup for original. I mean, it was close, I thought about it, but from a screenwriting point of view, it's very, very good. I mean, obviously, it's an important element of the movie and why it's so great. But what makes The Brutalist soar is that directorial achievement from Brady Corbet, what he is able to put on the screen for such a low budget, what he's able to do with those shots, with those performances. This is a truly remarkable achievement, and Brady Corbet should be on everybody's list for Best Director, as should Coralie Farja for The Substance. She's in my list for Screenplay, and she's also here in Director. I think she does absolutely one of the 5 best directing jobs of 2024. Like, that's a movie that could have gone wrong in so many ways. If she had been at all timid in that storytelling, like if she had been like, well, like, we're not gonna take it that far. Let's bring things down. Let's make things more realistic. Like, she just goes all in. She's like taking no prisoners. She doesn't care if she offends anyone, or maybe she goes too over the top in the third act. She's like, I'm gonna tell this story my way. And if you don't like it, turn off the movie, whatever. Like, I am going to do this film the way I want to see it play out on a giant movie screen. And I mean, we know she loved Excess from Revenge, her film from 2017, I think, which was great. And now with The Substance, like, I can't wait to see what she does next. Coralie Farja, I very much hope you get your much-deserved Oscar nomination. Luca Guadagnino, Challengers, would be on my list. I'm kind of surprised his name hasn't shown up very much this season. I guess because Challengers is like kind of a sports movie, and it came out back in April. But he has a second film for 2024, Queer. So like 2 big kind of awards movies. Challengers has an outside shot of getting a Best Picture nomination, as I talked about before. I think Guadagnino should be recognized for making 2 films this year. One I liked obviously more than the other, but there's a lot to admire about Queer. And in Challengers, I mean, he does some of his best work to date. The way he shoots those tennis matches, the way he like brings us back and forth in time. I mean, I just think he was the right storyteller for that film, like the best director for Challengers, and he gave it everything he had, and you see it on the screen. What an amazing directing job Luca Guadagnino did with Challengers, and Helena Rain, Baby Girl. I would have 2 female directors on my list. I think the work she did on Baby Girl is pretty remarkable from a screenwriting perspective and from a directing one. Like, kind of like with Challengers, actually, similar to Challengers, there were some moments in Baby Girl I was really vibing to the movie. It's not just like a slow-moving, introspective story of an older woman, interested in a younger man and things like she makes this movie incredibly entertaining. It's so much fun to watch. It's very well paced. It's beautifully shot. There are some montages in Baby Girl that really knocked me out. Were really fantastic. And I think her name should have been more in this award season than it turned out to be. So on my ballot for Best Director, I would have Sean Baker, Anora, Brady Corbet, The Brutalist, Coralie Farja, The Substance, Luca Guadagnino, Challengers, and Helena Rain, Baby Girl. And finally, what would I nominate to get into Best Picture? What would be my lineup for the 10 films? Just go back and watch what I put out a few days ago. My top 10 favorite films of 2024 those would be the 10 movies that I would nominate for Best Picture of the year. Thanks so much for watching and subscribing, and let me know in the comments below if you had an Oscar ballot, what would you nominate in the screenplay categories, in the acting categories, in director, in picture, and I'll see you next time at the Awards Contender.